You know what's harder than having to do reviews for a show that's in its 20th season? Having to do reviews for a show that's in its 20th season at night. So you have to talk quieter so you don't wake up your roommates. And you have to stay awake. Do you realize how hard that is? With this? What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 20, Episode 13, Evil Eye. So to be perfectly honest, this one had a great setup. You've got the severed head in the box, you've got the box exploding, you've got the guillotine, you've got the headless bodies, a serial killer, then all of a sudden find out about the heterochromia, and suddenly that's the target. A lot of great setup there. And then they butcher it by adding in this stupid subplot that ends up becoming a part of the main plot with this actress that's trying to learn how to be an NCIS agent so she can take it into her part. And suddenly that's the whole story now. Suddenly now it's just about this guy apparently having a fixation with her, and so he's only going to talk to her, and then she has to be the one to help save the day because they trick him into thinking that the people died, and that's basically it. How is that fun? How is that interesting? It's not. You have this really interesting concept, this really cool idea about this serial killer that they bring up. This guy is a perfect, just creepy villain to have, and his reasoning is totally psychotic, but it's interesting, and you just butcher it by making it all about this actress. Why? Are you trying to build up all these actors and actresses by being like, no guys, they're important too? What the hell are we doing here? It made no sense to focus on her. And really, that's kind of the biggest problem I have, and it's something that brings down this whole episode. Because if not for her story, this probably would have been a good episode. So it's just really frustrating that you decided to take this story that had so much potential, that could have been something really good. I don't know who made the decision, but whoever it is probably should have been fired. Probably somebody that should have been fired already, for being honest, based on the quality of writing in the show up to this point. A couple other things of note. First of all, the way they trick him by doing the whole resetting of the timer. Way too simple, way too easy. I mean, they make a joke about it where Knight's like, I didn't really think you'd be dumb enough to fall for it. I'm like, yeah, I'm surprised he was, honestly. They talked about how meticulous this guy was, how very detail-oriented he is, and yet he just lets himself get captured almost by showing up to pick up his guillotine, and then easily falls for this timer thing. Like, it's two things back to back. I kind of just feel lazy. He was so smart, he was so meticulous and everything, and now all of a sudden he's just not. Now he's just like falling for every possible trick in the book. Like, it feels weird. It feels like a sudden plot device that now he's gonna fall for it because the writers need him to, so that way the good guys can save the day. And the other thing in this one is Torres. I've seen Torres go all goo gaga over girls before, act all cocky and stuff around him. This is probably one of the worst that I've seen, though. And it's kind of funny because when he joined the show, at that point, I had not actually watched That 70s Show before. I knew he was from That 70s Show, but I had never seen it. Now that I have watched several seasons of That 70s Show, it's funny because obviously he's a very different character here. This is probably the closest that Torres has felt to Fez, though. That conversation with Parker in the car, you guys hit it off. He's like, oh yeah, there's some sparks there. Does she realize there's sparks there? No, but she will. That's a Fez line. It's maybe a little less creepy coming out of Torres, but it's still basically the same concept. I don't know. It just felt like he was way too childlike in this one. And granted, some people, when they get around celebrities, they can act a little giddy like this. So it's not entirely unrealistic, but it's still not interesting to watch from a character perspective. And it really didn't lead to much. In the end, he gets to play a dead body. And that's kind of it. Nothing really interesting happens there. They do his scene in one take, probably because they could hardly see him, and they just move on. And he makes a joke about being one take Torres. So overall, it just feels like this was kind of a lazy episode in some ways. And again, it's disappointing when you have such an interesting concept, and you ruin it by just adding in this BS storyline with an actress, and then don't really do anything funny with it either. So all in all, not a good episode. Disappointing, really, but we move on. So on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 14, Old Wounds. Pretty solid episode. And I feel like this is similar to another episode in the last season where we get to learn a little bit more about Parker's history, some of the stuff that he's been through that has turned him into the person he is today. And I feel like those episodes tend to be the best ones. the ones where we really get a deep dive into one of the characters' backstories and really get to know more about them. And Parker's already been a really good addition to the team, so anytime we get a little bit more about him, I feel like I have a good time with it. I do wish that maybe things had been handled a little differently in the end, because we have had several episodes like this in the past, sometimes with Gibbs, most of the time with Gibbs, to be honest. But you just get that moment where it's something personal, and so the lead agent starts to act sort of outside of his responsibility because it's something personal to him and he wants to get the job done. And I kind of wish we had just handled it a little differently this time. We once again see him doing what he's not supposed to be doing, going against the rules. And I know that's been part of this show for a while, that sometimes the rules are there to be broken because sometimes it's very personal. Sometimes they think it's the best way to get the job done. But I don't know. It just feels like it's kind of been done to death in that sense. And I almost kind of wish that maybe instead of Parker going in and directly confronting Wills, maybe instead we had him think about doing it, go to do it, and then stop himself and realize that the team is getting the job done and they could do it without him. I just feel like that would have been a much better wrap up for this story. And even better whenever you've got him reading the letter from Brighton and that line about you are not alone. You do have a partner. And of course they're showing the team when he's reading that line. I feel like it would have landed a lot more if he hadn't tried to go lone wolf in this one. But because he did, it's kind of like, okay, so he made a mistake. This is kind of his letter that helps him realize, oh wait, I'm not alone here. And it just feels, again, like it's been done way too many times. So that's really my only issue with this episode. The rest of it was fine. Maybe you could have had a few more twists and turns. Like the only real plot twist in this one was finding out that Parker was the one that shot Brighton. And it was an accident, but he's the one that ended up paralyzing him. That's about the only thing that was kind of like a shocking revelation. Everything else played out basically as it was presented. Wills puts them onto Benny. Benny basically says he's trying to take out his competition, and that's exactly what it is. And so they catch the bodyguards, and then the bodyguards lead them to Wills, and that's kind of it. So maybe a little straightforward in that sense, but it was fine. I think the main focus in this episode was Parker and Brighton and Wills and their history, and showing how Parker, this means a lot to him because of what he did and the guilt that he feels. So all in all, it was a fine episode with some flaws. I think that's kind of the best I'm going to get this season, is good episodes with flaws in them. So on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And finally, episode 15, Unusual Suspects. Meh. First of all, it's funny that we had 2 episodes back to back that were focused on one character mainly, in Parker. This one being more so about his dad, but it was just okay. They made a lot of jokes about, old people and people not wanting to be with their parents and retirement homes and all this. It was just bland, honestly. Even the case itself, it kind of felt like it was sort of rushing through everything, and we didn't really get time to sort of figure out what's going on. We jump from this kid getting killed, and then it's focused on his ex-girlfriend, and then it's focused on this Marilyn who turns out to be in a retirement home. So then we're in the retirement home, and then we're focused on these scams, and then it turns out it's not scams. He's actually helping people. And then we come to find out apparently this Maryland woman is actually selling these paintings in the black market. Like, it just all sort of happened. Like, there felt like there was no natural progression. Like, there is, technically. If you look at how they got from place to place, the evidence they got that took them from place to place, there is progression. It just didn't feel natural. It felt like it all just sort of popped up randomly. Even the fact that he's helping these people. He's helping these old people and giving them the money for this retirement home. Where did that come from? Last time we were looking at his little fantasy game, it's like, oh, he's out $50,000. He needs money. Now all of a sudden it's like, actually, he's got a ton of winnings and he's been helping people. How did that happen? How did they go from, we think he's actually in a lot of debt, to, no, actually, he's got crazy money right now? It feels very random how this sort of went forward. So it didn't really interest me as the episode was going along. And to be honest, by the end of it, whenever it turned out to be Marilyn, I'm like, well, I guess that should happen. We saw the guy at the beginning of the episode that ended up killing him. And so I figured it was just going to be, well, who got that guy to kill him? It being Marilyn is like, yeah, sure, okay. No real surprise and no real interest there. It's not like I guessed it, but I just didn't care. by the end of it. It did not have me. It didn't have my focus and my attention, if I'm being honest. I was kind of looking at my phone throughout the final half of the episode. So it was really just a bland episode. The stuff with Parker and his dad could have been more interesting, but it felt like they didn't really take the time with it. You know, there are some scenes where you could see the disconnect that was there between them, and you could see what they were going for. Obviously, his dad just doesn't want to be around him, not really enjoying himself being with him. Parker obviously does not enjoy having his dad around because it's very clearly a hindrance on the way he wants to live, and all of his plants are dying because of the temperature and all this stuff. So it's like there's a lot of butting heads between the two of them. But then you have these moments where these older people are talking about never getting to see their kids. Nobody ever wants to come talk to them. You kind of wonder if there's maybe going to be a moment where they reconcile, and they have a tiny moment at the end, but then they just go right back to arguing. So I don't know. It felt like there was more that they potentially could have done with this story, and I just don't feel like they really did much with it. And honestly, that's kind of been the theme of this season, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of potential for stories. There's a lot of potential for what they can do with some of these stories. And it feels like they just don't do anything with it. You know, with the main stories, they tend to ruin it by doing something stupid. Or with the side stories that have some sort of interest, they don't really do anything. You know, I think about McGee and him going on the quiz show. Like, there was something there, something possibly funny there, and then they just don't have him go on the quiz show. For Ducky's party, that Casey's talking about what it could possibly be, the themes that she has in mind, and all of this stuff. And then by the time we get to the party, she didn't choose a theme. She was just like, I didn't know what to choose. Are the writers just giving up halfway through these episodes? Like, they have a story in mind, they're like, which way can we take this? I just don't know. And then by the end of it, they ran out of time, and they're like, well, I guess we just won't do anything then. I'll just have the episode end. It's just very bizarre. I think that's about it for these episodes. So 3 more down and 7 to go. I don't know how the season's going to end. I'm assuming it's probably going to be a few more just individual episodic episodes. And then by the end of it, they'll probably bring up some story that will carry through into next season, more than likely. I just don't really have much interest, though. Like, even if they do bring something in, even if they do bring some story in and make it seem interesting, I'm not really going to get that excited for it anymore. Because I know at the end of the day, this show has just lost its capability of carrying through a story and wrapping it up in a satisfying conclusion. Like, they either don't have an idea of how to end it, or they just end it on another show to try to get people to go watch that show instead. And that's just not fun. So with all that being said, those are my thoughts on these 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on here as well, some Let's Plays. So check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.